Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Novice and welcome to the PlayStation 4 exclusive that everyone hated. At least that seems to be the belief on the internet over the past few months. But now that the game is out, what is it actually really like? Well, we'll go and jump into it. Firstly, before I jump into the game itself, I just want to go to the settings. There's a couple of things I want to point out. First of all, is that I played the entire game with aim assist off because I feel that the shoot mechanics are solid enough and tight enough that I think playing with aim assist off actually makes the game a bit more satisfying to pull off some headshots and some skillful shots when you're in a tight position, so that might be worth bearing in mind. Difficulty you got easy and medium and hard. If you're experienced at playing third person cover based shooters, I'd recommend the hard setting for that bit of extra challenge, and to be honest, it lengthens the game a bit. There's been some exaggeration about how long the game really is, but really it took me about just over 8 hours to complete it on hard, so whether if you feel that's worth the full retail price for a single player only game, that's entirely up to you. But hard mode is definitely the way to go if you're quite experienced in the genre. Display, you've got a gamma and a reset option and some audio displays. And they mentioned about the headphones here. I would hugely recommend playing it if you have a good pair of cans, because the sound quality is just tremendous. The audio and the soundtrack, everything really helps that sense of immersion, so I hugely recommend headsets. Right, so for the purpose of not wanting to spoil anything too much, we're going to jump into, I'd say about the reasonable, I'd say about third into the game, but without jumping into huge spoiler territories. And what's also worth pointing out that the load times are incredibly quick. The most I think I've discovered is about 8 seconds, so it's a really quick
God did not save this queen.
time to load the game. Obviously, the first thing people would notice about the game is just how graphically unbelievable it looks. It's just absolutely amazing what Ready Dawn, the developers of course, have managed to pull off. Ah, bugger it. So yeah, Ready Dawn, as some of you may know, they performed minor miracles with the PSP back in the day to make God of War games on that. They did an unbelievable job with it, and now they've shown their graphical prowess again with the Order. Ah, thanks very much. So yeah, graphically, it's lived up to expectation after the initial hype. It's stunning, truly stunning. But does it detract from the actual gameplay? Yes and no, I would say. But I'm about to nearly die here. You will notice the black bars, which has been much cause for controversy in some circles. Some have accused Ready Dawn of using it as a shortcut to render less pixels, whereas Ready Dawn's reasoning behind it was that they were going for a full cinematic experience, which meant, as I just died there. Yes, I would argue that that's a valid point, that from a technological point of view they may have done it just to cut a few corners, but when they say they'll go for a full cinematic look, I would argue that maybe that is exactly what they've gone for, because they've put loads of little features in that really enhance that look that they're going for, such as film grading and the use of soft focus, which adds to the sense of immersion and the full cinematic look that they have openly gone for from the word out. So, is it a technical shortcut they've took? Maybe, but compared to most other developers, I'm more inclined to believe this particular developer over some others. Now, in terms of the show mechanics, which I just mentioned earlier, that I played it with aim assist off, it's because the actual shooting itself is very tight, and there's a great sense of punch to the guns. There's some truly fantastic weapons to be used in this. Unfortunately, you don't get to play with them too often. My favourite gun, particular favourite, is called the thermite rifle, which allows you to set enemies on fire, and it's very satisfying to use. But unfortunately, at certain points in the game, you only get hold of these weapons for a certain length of time, and it's a bit disappointing because I would have liked to have had a mixture of using a shotgun and the thermite rifle and such like, but I think it might add a bit more variety. One other concern a lot of people had was the QTEs, and yes, there are a fair few of them. There's not as many as I personally thought there might have been, but there are a fair few, and if you're not a fan of that, then this game is not going to entice you in any other way whatsoever. Nevertheless, your more generic weapons, such as your shotguns, your rifles and your handguns, they all feel very satisfying to use, and they really get done within the rather, let's say, short length that the game has going for it. So what about the story? Well, for the first half of the game, for me at least, I felt it was fantastic. I mean, just the setup is just, you know, very enticing, very exciting to be involved in. For those who don't know, the story of the Order is that the Order itself is actually formed from King Arthur's Knights of the Round Table, and now they exist in a alternate history Victorian London, where they're fighting an almost endless war against these bunch of creatures called the half-breeds, which are essentially lycans, werewolves if you want to call them that. And your character is Sir Galahad, who is not only having to face these lycans, but he's also having to face rebels. So yeah, Ready Dawn pulled off the story for me in the first half of the game. I thought it was excellent, and really made me want to carry on, and I really completed the game in 2 sittings, but the first sitting must have took me the best part of 5 hours because I was that into the story that I wanted to just continue playing. The only trouble is for me, I felt in the second half it rather lost its way a little bit, especially when it goes into a rather cliched sense of maybe conspiracies within the higher ups of establishments, and there's also the plot about a potential betrayer, and it's pretty obvious. I knew who it was straight away of who it was, and I think a fair few people who know what they're looking for know exactly who the betrayer would be, and for me it was a little bit disappointing how that was handled, and the ending was very abrupt, and it leaves for me just a bit too much open for a sequel, which I would love to see this get a sequel, but at the same time it's never a good thing when you're highly anticipating a title and then you feel like they've left too much out because they're banking on hoping to get a sequel made. Nevertheless, there's great scope, I think, for what they could do with a potential sequel. I mean, one part I would love to see happen is maybe a sort of prequel-sequel type of scenario where the sequel part takes place a few years after this, while the prequel part, I would love to see maybe you get to play as King Arthur himself and the formation of the Order itself. I think that would be a cool idea. If nothing else, it mixes the gameplay up a lot more, because you're using swords and shields instead of more modern day weaponry. So I think that's one, you know, there's a lot of stuff they could do with the sequel. It's just a shame that I feel that they left a bit far too much open for my liking to not leave you hanging too much, and there's nothing wrong per se of maybe leaving things open for future stories. I just wish that you know, after such a brilliant first half, that the game would have carried on with the momentum, but which is why I think I'm not so critical with the length, because it doesn't outstay its welcome too much. Especially when the gameplay is mostly just this, with the QTEs, and I would have liked to see maybe some environmental puzzles thrown in, just to break up the gameplay aspects a little bit. And it does lean a bit heavily on the cutscene part as well, just a bit too much on the cutscenes rather than the interactivity. But nevertheless, I think you have to remember this is Ready Dawn's first console game, full-length console game, and it is worth, because I just get blown to smithereens. So it is worth pointing out that, you know, even though they've been going for a fair while, it is their first console game, so they're probably a bit inexperienced and maybe plays it a bit safer in some aspects. But nevertheless, they are a very talented studio, and I would love to see them get another crack at this. And hopefully they really start to show the potential that I think this potential franchise has, and it's got it in abundance. So would I recommend it? Maybe not the full retail price. If you're someone who prefers a lengthy game for a full retail price, then I can't really recommend the Order at that price. But it is very subjective as to what, you know, you would prefer. But I wouldn't recommend the Order at full retail price, because for me it just doesn't have the replayability factor to make it worth playing for too long. Even though I am a bit of a story guy, so I would get a couple of plays out of it for a while anyway, but that won't be the same for everyone else. But yet, so it is a big graphical showcase for what the PlayStation 4 could do, and I still highly would recommend you give it a try if you see it on sale, or you see just a little bit cheaper. Right, I think it's worth a punt. If nothing else, I think it's time to sofa until Uncharted 4 comes out later this year, and that's also to look forward to. So the Order, hit and miss in a lot of ways, but I still think Ready Dawn had done a decent first attempt at a console game. It's just that maybe it was hyped up just that way bit too much, and maybe in some aspects maybe they focused too much on the technical side of things. But nevertheless, considering all the criticism that's been focused, some of it legit, let's be frank. But nevertheless, I think it's still a worthwhile title to go in, just maybe not necessarily the full retail price, but that's another debate altogether, not just on the Order, but games in general. So to wrap up, like I say, the Order, for me, just about lives up to expectations. But if your expectations are reasonably low after recent reviews, then I think you're in for a whale of a time. And there's been many people who've said that on social media the last few days, who have been caught surprised because of the negative reaction that this game got, that they actually enjoyed it more. So that's probably the best way to go in, actually. So as I'm about to be killed again, I'll say thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again real soon. Be lucky.